She demanded no contact during our break. A week later, she tagged me in a thirsty post. I didn't respond. I simply changed my profile picture to one of me on a date with a beautiful woman. The no contact rule was suddenly broken by 12 missed calls from her. I, 29M, thought I knew what love looked like until my girlfriend of 3 years decided to teach me otherwise through what she called a strategic break. The conversation happened on a Tuesday evening in our shared apartment. She sat across from me on our worn leather couch, her laptop balanced on her knees, speaking in that measured tone she used when she'd already made up her mind about something. She explained that we needed space to figure things out, that she felt suffocated and needed time to rediscover herself. The words came out rehearsed, like she'd practiced this speech in the mirror. What caught me off guard wasn't the break itself. I'd sensed the distance growing between us for months, but the conditions she laid out with the precision of a corporate contract. No contact meant exactly that. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions, no showing up at places we both frequented. She needed complete radio silence to process her feelings. I sat there processing her terms while she continued explaining how healthy breaks worked, how they could strengthen relationships if done properly. She'd clearly done her research. I asked how long this break would last, and she said she didn't know. It could be weeks, it could be months. She needed me to respect her process and trust that if we were meant to be together, we'd find our way back. Something about her tone felt off. There was an excitement barely contained beneath her serious expression, like she was trying not to smile. I agreed to her terms anyway, partly because I still loved her and partly because I was curious to see where this would lead. She moved out that weekend, taking her plants and her extensive skincare routine with her. I helped her load boxes into her friend's car, maintaining the polite distance she'd requested. She hugged me goodbye, a brief, almost formal embrace, and reminded me once more about the no-contact rule. The first week was brutal. I caught myself reaching for my phone countless times to text her about random things, a funny meme, a song that reminded me of her, updates about my day. Each time, I had to consciously stop myself and remember her boundaries. I threw myself into work, started going to the gym more regularly, and tried to rebuild the social connections I'd neglected while we were together. My friends rallied around me with the enthusiasm of people who'd been waiting years for this moment. They'd never particularly liked her, though they'd been too polite to say so directly. Now they felt free to share their observations about her controlling behavior, her subtle put-downs, her way of making everything about herself. I defended her initially, but their words planted seeds of doubt I couldn't entirely ignore. By the second week, I was starting to feel lighter. The constant tension I'd grown accustomed to in our relationship began to lift. I realized I'd been walking on eggshells for months, carefully monitoring my words and actions to avoid triggering her moods. Without that pressure, I could breathe again. That's when her social media activity started ramping up. I wasn't actively checking her profiles. That would violate the spirit of our agreement. But mutual friends kept me informed whether I wanted to know or not. She was posting constantly. Gym selfies, nights out with friends, philosophical quotes about personal growth and finding yourself. Her captions grew increasingly cryptic and attention-seeking. 3 weeks into our break, she posted a photo that made me do a double take when my friend showed it to me. She was at some rooftop bar downtown, wearing a dress I'd never seen before, looking directly into the camera with an expression that could only be described as sultry. The caption read something about embracing new experiences and feeling alive again. But it was the tag that made my blood run cold. She'd tagged me in the post, the first contact she'd initiated since implementing her strict no-contact rule. Below the photo, she'd added a comment directed at me, something about hoping I was doing well and missing our deep conversations. I stared at my phone screen for a full minute, trying to process what I was seeing. This was the same person who'd lectured me about respecting boundaries and giving her space to grow. Now she was publicly broadcasting her availability while simultaneously trying to provoke a reaction from me. My first instinct was to respond. Part of me wanted to call her out on the hypocrisy, to ask what had happened to her precious no-contact rule. Another part wanted to take the bait, to tell her I missed her too and suggest we talk. But something held me back, maybe pride, maybe wisdom, maybe just exhaustion with her games. Instead, I did nothing. I didn't like the post, didn't comment, didn't reach out. I went about my day as if I'd never seen it, though it gnawed at me like a splinter I couldn't quite reach. That evening, while having dinner with my friend Marcus, he brought up something interesting. He mentioned seeing her at a coffee shop near his office, sitting very close to some guy he didn't recognize. They seemed intimate, he said, though he hadn't wanted to make assumptions. The timeline clicked into place with uncomfortable clarity. I spent that night thinking about patterns, how she'd always needed attention from multiple sources, how she'd get restless whenever our relationship felt too stable. how she had a talent for creating drama just when things were going smoothly. This break was starting to look less like self-discovery and more like having her cake and eating it too. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my friend Sarah, who I'd reconnected with since the break began. Sarah was someone I'd known since college, brilliant and funny, with the kind of natural beauty that didn't require much effort. We'd been grabbing coffee and catching up on old times. Nothing romantic, just friendship. I asked Sarah if she'd be interested in helping me with a little experiment. I explained the situation without going into too many details about my ex's behavior. Sarah found the whole thing amusing and agreed to what she called some harmless theater. We went to this trendy restaurant downtown that Saturday afternoon. Sarah wore a stunning blue dress that complemented her eyes, and I'd made an effort to look my best. We had a genuinely good time. Sarah was easy to talk to, and there was no underlying tension or walking on eggshells. She made me remember what it felt like to enjoy someone's company without constantly analyzing their mood or trying to say the right thing. Toward the end of lunch, I asked Sarah if she'd mind if I took a photo of us. She laughed and struck a playful pose, leaning in close with her hand on my shoulder. The picture captured both of us genuinely smiling, looking relaxed and happy. We looked good together, like people who actually enjoyed each other's company. That evening, I uploaded the photo as my new profile picture across all my social media accounts. I didn't add any caption or explanation, just changed the image and went to bed. Update 1. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing incessantly. 12 missed calls, all from her. The no-contact rule she'd established with such conviction had apparently evaporated overnight. The calls had started around 2 a.m. and continued until 6 a.m. She'd also sent a barrage of texts that I could see from my lock screen preview, questioning who the woman was, demanding explanations, accusing me of moving on too quickly, and not respecting what we'd had together. The irony was so thick I could cut it with a knife. This was the same person who'd tagged me in a thirst trap just days earlier, who'd been seen around town with another man, who'd insisted on absolute no contact while clearly not following those rules herself. I didn't respond to any of the calls or messages. Instead, I got ready for work as usual, stopping to grab coffee at my usual spot. While waiting in line, I noticed someone familiar across the street. Her, sitting in her car, watching the coffee shop. She was wearing sunglasses, but her posture and the way she gripped her steering wheel gave her away. This confirmed what I'd started to suspect. The break wasn't about self-discovery or processing feelings. It was about maintaining control while exploring other options. She wanted the security of knowing I was waiting in the wings while she sampled what else was available. My crime wasn't moving on too quickly, it was moving on at all. The calls continued throughout the day. She tried different approaches. Angry calls accusing me of betrayal, tearful voicemails about how confused she was, attempts at casual conversation like nothing had happened. I let them all go to voicemail, but didn't listen to most of them. By Wednesday, she'd escalated to showing up at places she knew I frequented. She appeared at my gym during my usual workout time, pretending to be surprised to see me. She approached me between sets, asking how I was doing and commenting on how different I looked. When I reminded her about her no-contact rule, she said that was just for the adjustment period and we could surely be civil to each other now. I kept my responses polite but brief, finishing my workout and leaving without engaging in the deeper conversation she was clearly angling for. Her frustration was visible. She was used to being able to manipulate situations through emotional appeals or creating dramatic scenes, but I wasn't giving her anything to work with. Update 2. By Friday, her desperation had reached new heights. She enlisted mutual friends to reach out to me, claiming she was worried about my mental state and wanted to make sure I was okay. Our friend Jessica called me, explaining that my ex had expressed concern about how quickly I seemed to be moving on and wondered if I was making healthy choices. I appreciated Jessica checking in, but I could hear the coaching behind her words. I assured her I was doing better than I had in months and that she shouldn't worry about me. When Jessica pressed for details about my new relationship status, I kept things vague. I explained that I was just living my life and focusing on my own happiness, the same thing my ex had claimed to be doing. What I didn't tell Jessica was that Sarah and I had started spending more time together, and it was becoming clear that what had started as helping with an experiment was developing into something real. Sarah was everything my ex wasn't: straightforward, confident without being controlling, supportive without being possessive. She didn't create drama or test boundaries or play games with my emotions. The contrast was startling. With my ex, I'd grown used to second-guessing myself constantly, analyzing her moods, trying to anticipate what would set her off. With Sarah, conversation flowed naturally. We laughed at the same things, shared similar values, and challenged each other intellectually without it turning into a competition or power struggle. Saturday night, Sarah and I went to a concert downtown. She looked incredible in a black dress that showed off her figure without being overly revealing. We danced together during the opening act, her body pressed against mine in a way that felt both exciting and natural. When the headliner came on, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure contentment without anxiety about what might go wrong. I posted another photo from that evening, this one of Sarah and me during the concert. Her head was tilted back against my shoulder as we watched the band, both of us clearly enjoying ourselves. The lighting cast a warm glow over us, and we looked like a couple who belonged together. This time, the response from my ex was immediate and unhinged. The call started before we'd even left the venue. By the time Sarah and I got back to my apartment, my phone showed 19 missed calls and dozens of text messages. Sarah raised an eyebrow at my constantly buzzing phone, and I explained more of the situation to her. She found the whole thing both amusing and concerning. She pointed out that this level of reaction to me simply living my life suggested some serious control issues on my ex's part. The next morning brought a new development. My ex had apparently done some detective work and figured out who Sarah was. She'd found Sarah's social media profiles and started commenting on old photos. Nothing directly aggressive, but definitely inappropriate. She also sent Sarah a private message introducing herself as my girlfriend and suggesting they should talk. Sarah showed me the message, laughing at its transparent manipulation tactics. My ex had written something about being concerned for both of our well-being and wanting to make sure no one was being misled about the situation. She claimed she and I were just taking a temporary break to work through some issues and would be getting back together soon. Update 3. Sarah's response was perfect. She replied that she wasn't interested in getting involved in drama and that if my ex had concerns about my behavior, she should address them with me directly. She also mentioned that from her perspective, I seemed like someone who'd recently gotten out of a relationship and was figuring out his next steps. Exactly what single people do. This message seemed to break something in my ex Sunday afternoon. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, using her key that I'd forgotten to ask for back. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard the front door open. For a moment, I thought someone was breaking in, until I heard her voice calling my name. She walked into the kitchen like she still lived there, wearing the outfit she knew I used to find irresistible. Her approach was calculated, sultry voice, apologetic smile, body language designed to remind me of what we'd had together. She said she'd made a mistake with the whole break idea, that she'd realized how much she missed me and wanted to work things out. I listened to her speech without interrupting, noting how she glossed over the past month entirely. There was no acknowledgement of her contradictory behavior, no explanation for the mysterious man Marcus had seen her with, no apology for violating her own no-contact rule. She spoke as if the break had been a mutual decision that had simply run its course. When she finished, I asked her to sit down because we needed to have an honest conversation. I told her that the break had given me clarity I hadn't expected. I'd realized how much stress and anxiety had been part of our daily dynamic, how much I'd been accommodating her moods and demands without getting the same consideration in return. Her expression shifted as she realized this conversation wasn't going according to her script. She tried several different tactics: tears, anger, seduction, guilt, cycling through them like someone flipping through radio stations looking for a clear signal. When none of them produced the desired effect, she demanded to know about Sarah. I told her that Sarah was someone I was getting to know, that she was kind and genuine and didn't play games with people's emotions. I said that spending time with Sarah had reminded me what healthy interaction looked like. My ex's face went through a series of expressions: hurt, rage, disbelief, then back to calculated charm. She tried to dismiss Sarah as a rebound, someone I was using to make her jealous. She said Sarah couldn't possibly understand me the way she did, that what we had was too deep and complex for me to just walk away from. She reminded me of our shared history, our inside jokes, the plans we'd made together. I acknowledged that we had history, but I pointed out that history isn't the same thing as compatibility. I'd spent the past month remembering who I was before I'd learned to walk on eggshells around her moods. I'd remembered what it felt like to have conversations without hidden agendas, to make plans without worrying about dramatic reactions, to simply enjoy someone's company without constant emotional labor. The conversation went on for over an hour. She cycled through every manipulation technique in her arsenal, from promising to change to threatening to hurt herself if I didn't give us another chance. When I remained unmoved, she finally showed her true colors, screaming that I was throwing away the best thing that had ever happened to me for some shallow rebound relationship. I remained calm throughout her tirade, which seemed to frustrate her more than anything. When she finally exhausted herself, I asked for my apartment key back and told her that our break had become permanent. She could consider this the closure she'd claimed to want. She left in a dramatic fury, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. 20 minutes later, my phone started buzzing with calls from mutual friends, all reporting that she was having a breakdown and needed my support. I turned off my phone and went for a walk to clear my head. That evening, I called Sarah and told her what had happened. She listened without judgment, then asked if I was okay. Not whether I was going to get back together with my ex, not whether I needed space to figure things out, just whether I was okay. The simple directness of her concern made me realize how much unnecessary complexity I'd been living with. 3 months later, Sarah and I were officially together, and I'd never been happier in a relationship. We communicated openly, supported each other's goals, and enjoyed each other's company without drama or games. My ex continued trying to insert herself into my life periodically, but her power to manipulate my emotions had completely disappeared. Looking back, I realized that her demand for a break had been the best thing that ever happened to me. She'd intended to keep me on reserve while she explored other options, but instead, she'd given me the space to rediscover what I actually wanted in a partner. Her attempts to control the narrative had backfired spectacularly, revealing her true nature while freeing me to find something real. The whole experience taught me that sometimes the most manipulative people inadvertently do you the biggest favors. They show you exactly who they are and exactly what you don't want in your life. My ex had demanded no contact, and in the end, that's exactly what she got, just not the way she'd planned it.